The long-awaited return of Lance Barber's George Cooper Sr. in Young Sheldon's final season is both exciting and bittersweet. As a fan, I'm thrilled to see George in some form again, but his appearance in Georgie and Mandy's first marriage might have unintended emotional consequences, particularly for Georgie. Given how young Sheldon has been preparing us for George's tragic death, his reappearance in any capacity after that loss might deepen the grief of his eldest son rather than bring him comfort. George Cooper Sr.'s return, a joyful yet heartbreaking surprise. Lance Barber's portrayal of George Cooper Sr. has been one of the standout elements of young Sheldon. Over the years, he has turned George from a one-dimensional memory in The Big Bang Theory into a deeply complex and sympathetic character. The show has shown us the pressures of his life, the struggles of being the father of a genius, his financial worries, and the challenges in his marriage. Through it all, he's remained a loving, albeit flawed, father. So when the announcement came that Barber would return for Georgie and Mandy's first marriage, I was initially overjoyed. The idea of seeing him again, even if only in a flashback or dream sequence, feels like a gift to the audience. It allows fans one last chance to experience George's warmth, humor, and fatherly wisdom. But the more I think about it, the more I worry about how this will affect Georgie, who has had a complicated relationship with his dad. If not handled carefully, George's return could make Georgie's grief even worse. Georgie and George, a relationship of unspoken love. Out of all the Cooper children, Georgie arguably had the most strained relationship with George Sr., while Sheldon was the prodigy who got most of their father's attention, and Missy was the feisty yet adored daughter. Georgie often felt like the forgotten one. He struggled in school, didn't share Sheldon's intellect, and often clashed with his father over responsibilities and expectations. But despite their arguments and differences, George and Georgie loved each other. Young Sheldon has done an excellent job of showing that George, in his own way, was proud of his eldest son. He recognized Georgie's business instincts, allowed him to explore his independence, and even supported him when he decided to drop out of school to work full-time. However, due to George's untimely passing, Georgie never truly got the chance to reconcile with his father or hear outright how much he was valued. That's what makes the upcoming first marriage episode so concerning. If George appears in a flashback or dream, it could open old wounds for Georgie, making his grief feel fresh all over again. Instead of providing closure, it might remind him of all the things he never got to say to his dad. How George's return could impact Georgie's grief. For Georgie, losing his father at a young age is a wound that may never fully heal. Unlike Sheldon, who has his scientific mind to compartmentalize emotions, or Missy, who has her own way of rebelling and processing feelings, Georgie is different. He has always been more emotionally invested in his relationships, even if he doesn't always show it outwardly. Seeing his father again, whether in a flashback or a dream, might force Georgie to confront his unresolved feelings. If George appears in a way that reminds Georgie of the love and approval he never fully received in life, it could intensify his grief. Imagine a scenario where George offers words of wisdom or a heartfelt speech about how proud he is of Georgie, something that never happened while he was alive. That could be both comforting and devastating. Additionally, if the show chooses to depict George in a way that highlights his absence, perhaps in a wedding scene where Georgie wishes his father were truly there, it would emphasize the pain of his loss. Weddings are already emotional events, and adding a ghostly or imagined presence of George could make it even harder for Georgie to move forward. Could George's appearance bring comfort instead? On the other hand, Georgie and Mandy's first marriage could handle George's return in a way that brings peace rather than pain. If George appears in a flashback scene that showcases a happier moment between him and Georgie, it might provide a sense of warmth rather than sadness. A lighthearted memory, perhaps a father-son bonding moment or advice about marriage, could serve as a reminder of George's lasting influence on his son's life. Alternatively, if George appears in a dream or vision, it could offer Georgie the closure he never got in real life. A touching moment where George tells Georgie he's proud of the man he's become would be deeply emotional, but also healing. It would give Georgie the affirmation he always sought from his father and might help him move forward with less regret. The legacy of George Cooper Sr. in young Sheldon. Regardless of how George's return is handled, one thing is